We're back live here on The Beat. I'm Curtis Wright. With us on the phone, and we're honored to have him back. He's a very busy man, and there's been a bit of controversy in Washington that where his name and himself have come into play here. He's our representative from southeastern North Carolina, and again, we're honored to have him and thank him for taking the time today to discuss this with us and connect directly with us back here at home, and that's Representative Congressman Walter Jones. Good morning, Congressman.
Curtis, good morning. Delighted to be on your show. Thank you.
Some have just said this isn't a big deal. It's just a little bit of maybe family squabble. We don't know the inside story. There's a lot of speculation about what's gone on. Maybe you didn't support the right legislation. Maybe you didn't support the right presidential candidate. Well, to be honest with you, as someone who is a dedicated and conservative, and have watched you represent us honorably and effectively here in North Carolina, I'm upset. You're my representative. You're my representative, and the influence that you have to put our country back on the right track and to make sure we have effective and honest and responsible policy is why we sent you to Washington, not to represent the Republican leadership and not to represent the President of the United States, but to represent us. Talk to us a little bit about your feelings about what's been going on.
Curtis, that was well said, because that is my philosophy, what you just explained to the listeners as well as myself. I always say that when you have the privilege to serve, whether it be local, state, or federal, that yes, you are in a party. I am a Republican. I'm a conservative. But when it all is said and done, I'm an American. And I have to do what I think is right for the people of the 3rd District and the people of the state and the nation. And I don't really, there were 3 other men from around the country, Michigan, Arizona, and Kansas, and myself were removed from committees. And the Speaker has never done anything except say, well, they don't follow my lead that much. And many times I voted against Mr. Boehner's position. I did not vote to bail out Wall Street. He did. I have not voted for these debt ceiling increases. He has led the bill. The budget bill of 2011, Budget Control Act of 2011, is why we're in the mess we're in today. And I didn't vote for that because simply I think for too long, every time, whether it's President Bush or President Obama, Curtis, what they say is, well, we've got to raise the debt ceiling so we can pay our bills. Well, if you don't spend so much, you don't have so much to pay back. But every time we raise the debt ceiling, it just allows this country to borrow more money from foreign governments. And I didn't take this personally. It's politics. Politics is an ugly game. And I will tell you the truth that Mr. Boehner is a good person, but too much he's tied into all these money groups up here. And in my opinion, that is not what the people of Eastern North Carolina want you to be part of. They want you to be independent, free-thinking, and do what you think is right.
Congressman, I was in Washington about 3 months ago broadcasting live for a conference on illegal immigration. And I had interviews. I know you were very busy, but I had interviews with other senior congressmen. And off mic, they would speak to me about the, quote, culture of Washington. And they were just, there was in their eyes such disappointment. And our conversations were really that it's not about, Curtis, putting the country first. It's not about our American principles of free market and capitalism. It's not about doing what's best for the future, our children. It's about Washington too often. How do we change that, Congressman?
Well, I think one day that the American people, there'll be another scandal kind of like Watergate, and it'd be all about money and who buys in influence up here. And there will be a scandal, maybe not in my lifetime, but in yours I know. But then the American people are going to say, what options do we have to change it? And there's only, at this point, based on the Supreme Court ruling, there's only one option. You cannot mandate it, but you can offer what's called an alternative, and that could be possibly voluntary public financing. But right now, this whole place up here is all about money, And I'll tell you a quick story. One of the young men that was kicked off the committee is a freshman. His name is Tim Holzkamp. Holzkamp. And he's from Kansas. He has the biggest farming area in Kansas in his district. He was kicked off the Agriculture Committee. And last week in the conference, he got up and spoke, and I'll make this very quickly. He said, Mr. Speaker, when I came to Washington, I asked you what I needed to do to help the Republican Party. You told me you need to raise money. And he said, I did that. He said, but I'm going to tell you something today, Mr. Speaker. My voting card belongs to the people of Kansas, not to you in the leadership. And Curtis, that goes right back to the point you were making about those you interviewed a few months ago up here in Washington. Everything up here is about money. And that, in my opinion, challenges good policy decisions.
Now,
and that's
Congressman, you know, look, I didn't fall off the turnip truck yesterday. Most of my life was as a small business owner. I left California. I left California really for all the same reasons that I'm frustrated with Washington. That we took something that was great and we followed socialist, Marxist, we followed this ideology, and we watched my great state of California just run to demise. We've seen it in Detroit. We've seen it in Michigan. We've seen it in other places. And in the circular debate that's going on, we're not talking about what we need to do, as we've done in the past, to really put America back. We're bowing to a completely different ideology that doesn't celebrate capitalism, doesn't celebrate a free market, doesn't celebrate the individual. I believe we are at a historic crossroads in the history of the United States.
I agree with you totally. I've been saying for a couple of years we're at a crossroads, and either we're going to get this nation moving in the right direction as the founders intended, or we're going to keep going down the mountain and we're going to crash one day. And I think you're exactly right. You articulated better than I did, but I'm just telling you, you're exactly right. And the American people need to really, I don't know, it's just like, why are we still in Afghanistan? Curtis, kids are dying. Kids are dying. We're spending $10 billion a month. It's borrowed money from foreign governments to prop up a crook whose family's in the drug dealing business. And we're spending $10 billion there, and we can't do it in Eastern North Carolina because we don't have any money.
Amen.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
And, you know, and Congressman, you know, I guess I'm going to ask you a question because, look,
sure.
I was a so-called Tea Partier. That's what the label they finally put on. I was a conservative grassroots guy long before, as the country song says, it was cool to be a conservative grassroots guy. You have been consistent. Yet we are being mocked by Washington. We are being told that our movement is dead. We are being told by the Republican Party that we need to sit down, shut up, either sit in the back of the bus or get off the bus. So I guess I'm asking you, I don't know anything but to fight for America and for these ideals. I don't know what else to do but to continue to fight.
Well, Curtis, you're doing the right thing, and don't listen to Washington. I'm going to tell you that. Do what your heart tells you to do, as well as everyone that's listening to this show. Do what your heart tells you to do. Remember, there are two sacred documents in America, the Bible and the Constitution. That's why I'm a big Ron Paul supporter. I love Ron Paul. I appreciate all that Ron Paul's done while he was in Congress. And it's going to take people like you, Curtis, not to lose the enthusiasm and the fire, because there is every reason to believe that people like us, yourself, and people listening to the show, that we can make the difference. I mean, I will be honest with you. That's the reason I don't vote for debt ceilings, because all it is giving a blank check to whoever the president is. I didn't vote for him when Bush was in there, by the way, because that is exactly what they're looking for. Well, if you give me a little bit more credit, I won't have to worry about it today. Well, start worrying about it yesterday. And that's what we're not doing up here. And I mean, tax rates and all that's important, but you know what's really important is not continuing to let this country borrow more and more and more money.
Congressman, I want to come back maybe,
sure.
And I'm not trying to go over, you know, old ground here or be repetitive, but Mr. Boehner punished me. He punished my state. I have to, you know, maybe this is the wrong question to ask you, but I am disappointed that I have not heard from my other congressmen, Republican congressmen and congresswomen in North Carolina, coming to your defense, because again, it is my belief you represent North Carolina first and the people of North Carolina. Where are all your colleagues standing up for
Curtis, I'm going to make a general statement. It's not pointed at anyone, but too many times when people come to Washington, they become part of the problem instead of the solution. And they would just rather let this go by. This is Walter Jones's problem. It's his problem, and let him deal with it. Well, that's okay. I got no problem with that, but I appreciate what you said. But going back to the point, the people that come here after a few terms, they end up losing their independence. And if you lose your independence, you lose your principles. If you lose your principles, you lose your ability to fight for what's right.
Congressman, you said something earlier, which I have commentators from former Congressman Joe Diaguardi, former members of the stock exchange, business owners. They all say the same things I say. You cannot, right. And we've done it in North Carolina, and that was really set the foundation, if you will, for us to be so successful these last 2 years in turning things around. We cannot allow this debt limit to be raised. We've got to cut up the credit card. Number two, we have to talk first about spending cuts before we talk about hurting those or raising taxes or more burdens on those that are creating jobs. I mean, we're all talking, am I right, about the wrong things.
Well, this is what, this debate discussion, I should say, between Boehner and the president. I mean, no, we don't know what's going on. Last week at the conference that I made reference to about the young man from Kansas speaking, we went in there, 200 Republicans or whatever. Not everybody goes all the time. I don't. But I went last week to find out, what are we doing? I have to read the papers just like you and your listeners do to know what's going on. And if they put out something here that includes the debt ceiling, then I think that Mr. Boehner has made a real serious mistake, because the debt ceiling is a debate we don't have to have until March, and that gives us a little bit of leverage. If you throw in the debt, and I don't know he is, let me make that clear and be fair. I don't know that he is, but if that's part of this deal, then there is no way anyone can look at it with an open mind. You just can't do it. And if you don't have entitlement cuts, I mean, I'm for putting everything on the table. I'm very strong for the military. But there's a lot of waste at the Pentagon. Mm-hmm. That needs to be put on the table and discussed. And if you can't do it all in these 2 weeks, which I don't think you can, then pass some type of legislation that gets us past the sequestration and forces us, and I use that word again, Curtis, forces us to deal with these problems in February. I mean, any deal you make right now is going to be, in my opinion, have unintended consequences to it.
And I want to go back, because I know you didn't vote for it. Newt Gingrich said it so clearly and so well, that the idea of the super committee and the sequestration was the dumbest idea or the stupidest idea in the history of the United States. And I sat on my show 3 times, and I'm sorry for bringing out her name, but I listened to Renee Elmers tell me, Congresswoman Renee Elmers tell me over and over again, Curtis, don't worry about it. It's all going to work out. We've got them now. And I'm going, but everything you just agreed to is what you ran against. And of course, as we know, this is all just falling apart, and it's all going to be devastating for America. And you can hear the frustration in my voice, Congressman. I feel like the kids are in charge of the house and the inmates are in charge of the asylum. When is the parent going to walk in? And that's why I look to Mr. Boehner. When are the parents going to walk in and give everybody a timeout and start acting responsibly?
Well, Curtis, there was an article in one of the Hill magazines I read before I got on your show, and they were talking about K Street. K Street is where everybody, Democrat too, I want to be fair about it, Republican, run to raise money. That again is it's the main problem up here in Washington. It's too much special interest influence. Even on Mr. Boehner making these, I don't know what he's talking to the president about, but I'm guarantee you he's thinking about my friends on K Street. The whole thing is, and I'm not going to get back into Renee Elmers per se, but the problem is when people get up here they seem to forget. That's one reason I'm independent. I've maintained my independence. And there have been some things I voted on that I wish I had not. But when it comes to a continue of spending and borrowing money from foreign governments, I'm too old to learn to speak Chinese. I would never. I'm just too old. But that's who owns us, the Chinese. And that's why I want a meeting today at 2:30 to talk about starting a movement. It'll be small, to get our troops out of Afghanistan. Curtis, I've got an article that was in the Raleigh paper this weekend that says that the Afghan parliament wants to have a stronger relationship with Pakistan than America. Well, fine, that suits me great. But America stopped spending money and killing kids in Afghanistan.
Amen.
For what? So but let me say one thing. Okay. Don't lose your fire. I'm an old man and I've got fire.
Well, Congressman, like I said, you're our congressman. I am so proud of the gains we've made in North Carolina. We have done the right things these last 2 years. And I believe that North Carolina, as it's done in the past, our history, has been to lead this nation. I believe we can do it again. And I believe we in North Carolina have got to stand up for you. And, you know, if there is something we can do, I hope you'll let me know and your staff will let us know. If that's an event, if that's a rally, I don't know what it is, but if North Carolina wants to lead this nation out of this morass, then we've got to stand up for you, and we got to be there for you and fight against this. And I just want to tell you, we're behind you. We're behind you.
Curtis, I appreciate just everything you've said, and I can assure you that together and with the guidance of God, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, we can win this battle. But people that listen to you, to other people like yourself, don't get disillusioned. I mean, because you're the only hope. There is no, this place up here is dysfunctional. There are a few of us, and I want to be fair about it, in both parties, that are trying to do what's right for America's future. Not what's right for raising money for Democrats or Republicans, but to make the right policy decisions. And you're right, if we don't have entitlements as part of a package, there is no package. If we put debt ceiling increases in an agreement, there is no agreement. Because the debt ceiling is as dangerous, in my opinion, to the financial future of America as anything we can do.
Well, Congressman, again, pass on to your staff and always keep in mind, if we can do something, if we need to get the word out, if we need to mobilize so that when you look over your shoulder, we're there, or we need to let people know how we feel from North Carolina, please let us know. I sincerely mean that, because you're right. I don't have to tell you. We can't lose this fight or we lose America.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And Curtis, thank you for the opportunity. And God, please bless our men and women in uniform. And to everyone, when you see each other between now and the 25th, say Merry Christmas, not Happy Holidays.
Amen. Merry Christmas, Congressman. Thanks for taking the time.
Merry Christmas.
I'm Curtis Wright here on The Beat on Talk Media TV, talking with Congressman Walter Jones from North Carolina. We're so appreciative and honored that he was with us. We'll be right back. Stay with us.